reconvening the meeting. We're joined by Councillor Baston, and we're on agenda item number 9, which is the 22-23 capital strategy, 22-23 treasury management strategy, and 22-23 investment strategy. So, Councillor Baston, if you'd like to present that agenda item.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And firstly, can I thank you for rearranging the agenda and thank the members for allowing that to happen. So I'll introduce this this item, which is the 22-23 capital strategy, the 2022-23 treasury management strategy, and the 22-23 investment strategy. These three strategies are required to be presented annually to Council for approval and set out the Council's capital limits and borrowing limits and where the Council will invest its money on an annual basis. Members will recall that Treasury management training for members was arranged on the 22nd of March 2021, where the key points of the annual strategies were discussed. This will be arranged again for March 2023. So there's a 2-year cycle. The capital strategy sets out projected capital plans and the capital financing requirement, which is the measure of the Council's underlying need to borrow for the capital programme, which is a maximum of £31.2 million for the year 2022-23. This includes borrowing for leisure and investment property in Dartmouth, waste, housing, Batson Creek at Salcombe, commercial units and Batson Creek, Salcombe for the Harbour Depot, Dartmouth Health and Wellbeing Hub, Ivy Bridge Regeneration, and the Plymouth and South Devon Freeport. The strategy set out a position at a point in time and are based on the 22-23 capital programme approved by Council in February 2022. These three strategies can be revised at any time during the financial year. The Council is proposing to continue to invest its money in banks and building societies within the UK, which is set out within the Treasury Management Strategy. The strategy in Appendix B also sets out the minimum revenue provision, or the MRP policy statement. The MRP is the capital repayment of any borrowing. The operational boundary is recommended to be set at £50 million to reflect the current projected levels of borrowing, and the authorised limit is recommended to be retained at £75 million. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. Buckle, I believe you're the author of the report. Would you like to make any comments on it before we take questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say that these three strategies, they're strategies that we write every year. It's a requirement that we do this, and they have to be approved by full council. So exactly the same reports will be on the council agenda for the 31st of March. They are going through the audit committee today so that those strategies can be scrutinised, and any recommendations can then be made to the full council meeting on the 31st of March. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I've got a number of questions, and I have to say that some of these, you know, I so fundamentally disagree with the way that it's done that I can't. I'm mainly within governance that I can't vote for it. But just to start with, on page 69. 8.3, it says, in accordance with paragraph 23-25 of the statutory guidance on local government investments, qualitative indicators or risk and portfolio performance will be reported to audit committee. The frequency of this reporting is anticipated to be every 6 months and will include the following. Well, I'm not aware of that ever coming to audit on any of our investment properties, so I think we fall short of that. The governance, the governance of it, and again, this is I think this is fundamentally where this council goes so horribly wrong on occasions, is that the council's senior leadership team will initially consider proposals, and I think it goes even further than that. That basically we're setting up a position where it is the senior leadership team that are telling us, a leading elected members, as to what should and shouldn't happen in respect of projects. And 8.10 I don't agree with, because I just don't think it's correct that they will then lead the executive members into debate with specific members of risk before the executive make a decision. In this way, risk will be transparent through the process. Well, those discussions that you're talking about there are in private, unminuted. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to take ownership of the risk, because I don't know anything about it, because I was never asked or never had an opportunity to scrutinise those. So, yeah, I mean, those are just some of it. But I think probably above all, I think my major concern is that, as we see so often, that it is officer projects that come forward, not member projects. We had a very useful discussion early in COVID, a Teams meeting about how we felt we should I think the phrase they were using was the Build Back Better. Those have all been totally discarded, not taken into account at all. Just pressing ahead with what officers have decided seems to be like a good idea. So I can't support that, I'm afraid. I think as far as the Treasury investment strategy, I haven't got a problem with that. I'm very happy with that. I don't see a problem, but it's more to do with the investment strategy that I've got issues with.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brazil. Mrs. Buckle, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So yes, page 69 and page 70 of the Audit Committee agenda does talk about the monitoring report on the Council's 2 investment properties. So members will be aware this is the investment property at Dartmouth, and also the investment property that we have at Lee Mill in Ivybridge. There was a comprehensive report which came to the Audit Committee on the date was the 9th of December, so just 3 months ago, entitled Investment Properties Update and Monitoring Report. And all of the indicators which are on page 70 were contained within that report. So that looked at things like valuation of those investment properties. It looked at things like market trends and yields, and rental income that had been received. And also talked about the current balance on the management, maintenance and risk mitigation reserves. So all of those indicators in that report were reported to the committee in December, and that report will be brought to this committee on a 6-monthly basis. So the next time we will do that will be around the summer, when we have the new we have to do a fair value valuation of those 2 investment properties on an annual basis. That will be done as part of the balance sheet for 31st of March 2022. So that will inform the next report that will come to members, again on those 2 investment properties. With regards to the governance section on page 70, that is a direct that has come from the previous investment strategy. That strategy was approved by council, and that does set out how opportunities will either be, it is part of SLT's role to identify opportunities and bring those to members, but also members feed into those opportunities as well. So members will contact members of SLT and ask them to appraise certain opportunities. So I think it is, those opportunities come both from members and from SLT. With regards to that, as I say, these sections in governance have come from the investment strategy. The executive at its March meeting considered a regeneration and investment strategy, and that will come to members at the 31st of March council meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. I was largely going to say what Mrs. Buckle has said. Thank you. And I think it should be noted in 8.5 that the council senior leadership team will initially consider each proposal as an initial step and recommend that the proposal proceeds in principle. It then comes down to the executive and we consider it, and it'll go to the wider membership if we consider it's a goer, if you like. Now, the twice that I'm aware of that a member has brought opportunities to us, there was Hannaford's and there was Hannaford's at Torcross and the Undertakers in Lower Union Road in Kingsbridge, both brought by Councillor Brazil. Officers had to drop everything and jump around and look at them, and they were both totally unsuitable. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions on agenda item number 9 or comments from members of the committee? Yep, Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. Just a couple of queries. Firstly, under 2.2, well, page 57. I asked earlier whether the 2-year training cycle could be reduced to 1 year for the work that we discussed earlier. And I'm wondering whether it's appropriate to ask the same question here for treasury management training, that the 2-year cycle be revised to 1 year, so that we are kept up to date. On page 66, relating to the Southwest Mutual Bank, unless I've missed it, I'm not aware of what's currently going on. I apologise if I have missed it, and could we have an update on what is actually happening? That's 6.1. And lastly, on page 71, I'll just get under 8.12, it says there that the council will delegate the authority and decision-making function. Fine, okay, but the bit about ward members will be consulted at the earliest opportunity, it is, I think personally, a little bit vague, and I'd like to see some toughening up of what it actually means in reality, and also that there is ongoing consultation with board members after that initial consultation. I'm open to offers as to what it looks like, but I don't know what earliest opportunity means. So could I ask for some sort of clarity there?
Mrs. Buck.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So with regard to member training, we do have to pay for that training, and we normally use Link, who are treasury management advisors. Certainly, if it's members' wish, we can look to reinstate that on an annual basis. Because our strategies don't change very much, we thought that probably once every 2 years was probably sufficient. But certainly we can. I think it's about £9,000 that we pay for. Sorry, £9,000 is the amount that we pay for the fee to Link services, but the training is probably in the region of a couple of £1,000s. But if it's members' wish that we do that on an annual basis, we can certainly look to do that.
But it's done anyway, is it?
Sorry?
It's carried out anyway, is it?
No. So it's specific training that Link would do, member training really on these strategies. The strategies look very similar to how they have in the past, and again there hasn't been any significant changes in like the potential indicators. So sometimes the government come in with or say that we have to have new indicators in our strategies. There isn't anything new that's coming in this year, but again, like I say, we can do that on an annual basis. I know we did it the previous year. And it is something that we could set up for our treasury management advisors. It's just a balance really against cost, against the benefit of having that training. With regards to the Southwest Mutual Bank, I do think an update is probably due to come to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on that. Is that right, Janice? Yes. because I attended the annual general meeting of the South West Mutual Bank. That was back in August. I think it's fair to say that obviously the pandemic has affected the progress of the South West Mutual Bank. So, for example, they did furlough the majority of their staff that was working on that. So it is going to take them a little bit longer to obtain their banking license. But yes, we can bring a full update to that, to the overview and scrutiny panel, and I think it is on the work plan for that. Thank you. And with regards to page 71, and ward members being consulted at the earliest opportunity, my understanding of that is as soon as we have a sort of worked up business case, as you like, we would then and we would be ready to take that to the executive members. It would be at that point really that we would also consult ward members at the same time. And yes, certainly ward members would be kept updated with progress and what was happening with that project at all times. Thank you.
Is there a recommendation in there that you're making then that you want training to be done on an annual basis? Is that it?
I accept. Sorry, I accept what Lisa is saying about not much is changing, but if for no other reason than a refresher, then I think it would be worthwhile. If others feel the same, that's fine. I wasn't aware of the cost, but that's a balance in the equation. But I certainly think it would be worthwhile.
Councillor Baston?
As we're discussing this training, I wonder if it would be better to leave it until May, June 2023, because we have a council election at the beginning of May 2023, and it would seem ridiculous not to involve new councillors for the sake of a couple of months, you know.
Councillor Rowe?
Well, funnily enough, that's exactly what I was going to say. Councillor Buston's taken the words out of my mouth, because there will be changes in membership of committees, etc., in May next year. And as regards this report, item 9, there's a lot of information in there, and it actually takes us quite a while to scroll through it all and take it all in. Not necessarily page by page, because there are a lot of pages attached to it, but I do agree that I think training or updating like every year or so would be a good idea. Thank you.
It looks like Mr. White is typing the amendment to the recommendation as we speak. Is that you wanted to speak, Councillor Brazil, or are you just...
Yeah, if I may, Chairman. Yeah. First of all, apologies, I've misunderstood there on the on 8.3, page 69. But I think if you read it again, it says the risk of loss will be assessed on a case-by-case basis as part of the acquisition due diligence and will be a criteria considered throughout the approval process. Risk of loss during the management phase of the investment shall be reported in accordance with the criteria below, and then it goes on. Well, my understanding is that we're in the process of building or investing £9 million into an Aldi at Ivy Bridge. That hasn't been reported to anyone apart from the council for over a year now. Certainly hasn't come to this audit committee. We've had briefings. Those are not in public. Those are not open to the public. I think if you read 8.3, it specifically is stating that should be not only properties that we own, but should also be investments that we are involved in getting in. And I mean, particularly with the Aldi, with the inflation that we've seen in cost of materials, labour, etc., and things like that, I understand that there's a report that's coming out in the next few weeks. I think from the briefing we had before. But again, I'm just disappointed that as an audit committee, who is meant to be looking at risk, we haven't been in a position to judge that, because we haven't seen any figures. We're just told that it's okay, don't worry, press on. You know, what happens if the REBA comes out and it says, oh, actually, it's going to be over the 9 million and therefore the whole thing's going to fold? And what we just, you know, if we're to do our job properly, I don't think we are being given the information that we need to take these kinds of decisions.
Mrs. Buckle, would you like to?
Yes.
You can comment on that.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So the spend on the Ivy Bridge regeneration project to date has been reported through the capital programme monitoring report, which comes to the executive. The last report came to the executive just last week, and that showed the current level of spend on the Ivy Bridge regeneration project. We're now in a process where we would be looking to put in for planning for that project, and as Councillor Bazil said, we are going through the REBA stages, which is where you start to firm up your construction cost. There are design contingencies and provisional sums within that project to allow for things like inflation and to allow for things that would come out from the design process. And once we have all that information and we have a decision on planning, it will come back to members. It will come back to a full council, for members to then look at the whole package again, before we enter into that construction project. So there is a further process to still to go through. It is a bit like pulling all of the pieces of the jigsaw together. You've got the planning, you've got the construction contract, you've got economic conditions such as you know, what's going on in the world and how that affects things like prices and inflation. And yes, that will come back to members with the full picture, as well as things like looking at things like the inflation, the contingencies that we have within the project, and that will come back to members before a decision is made to proceed with that project. Thank you.
Right, if that's coming for development management in June, are we likely to see it at the July full council meeting then? Is that the next step after that?
We would certainly try and tie it in with a scheduled council, but if we have to set up a special council, I believe that can be called within, I'm not sure if it's 5 working days or 7 working days, but a special council can be called if we are on a very tight time frame, because of the amount of time it will take to build, and therefore we will obviously try to get that into a scheduled council meeting, but it may be necessary to call a special meeting. Thank you.
Any other questions from, Councillor Taylor?
Please. Yeah, I brought this up the other day when we had the Ivy Bridge regeneration meeting. It was 2 years ago, I believe, that we were quoted 6 million. And it seems to me that the prices of materials and everything's gone up by 23-25%. Inflation is now moving on. It seems a lot to have built in 2 years ago and foresee that particular rise. And my concern is that we aren't going to meet our budget on that project. And where does the money come from then?
Mrs. Buckle?
Well, when we originally looked at the budget for that project, as I said, we did include things like inflation provisions. We put a 10% design contingency in there because until you actually start digging into the ground, you don't know what you're going to find. Although obviously we've done lots of testing. So it's normal project procedure that you would include design contingencies. And that's what we did as part of the project team. And as I say, we have got provisional sums in there for things like inflation as well. So we're, as things stand at the moment, the prices that we've had back through the REBA stages, it is within budget. Obviously we will continue that process, and also we're in the position of putting in for planning at the moment. So yes, as I say, it will come back to members with the outcome of all of those pieces of work before it proceeds.
So when we were given that price, it was included that you would get a 25-28% increase then, which seems a big chunk.
I'm not able to go into the actual contractual price as part of the public meeting. If we want to go into the exempt, if we want to move into exempt, I can give further detail around that. The amount in the public domain is the whole project cost, which is the 9 million, and that will be made up of various factors. Part of that is obviously construction price, and there are all the other elements that feed into that as well.
Any other questions from councillors regarding agenda item number 9? No. So we've got 2 recommendations. On
I believe, Chair, we've only had the proposed
Yeah.
second.
Okay.
Not yet.
Well, I'm just proposing that we take the first recommendation first, which is that the audit committee scrutinises and recommends to council the approval of the capital strategy, the treasury management strategy, the investment strategy, and that delegated authority be given to section 151 officers in consultation with the leader of the council and the executive member of finance to make any minor amendments to the strategy throughout the financial year. Do I have a proposer for that first part of the recommendation? Councillor Rowe, and seconded. Councillor Pennington. All those in favour of the first part of the recommendation?
It's 5-4.
Any against?
And 1 against.
1 against. So the second part of the recommendation, which I'll take now, I need to put my glasses on, is that as part of the 2023 member induction programme, the committee requests that a treasury management training session be included. That was proposed by Councillor Spencer. I'm happy to second that. All those in favour of the second part of the recommendation?
And that's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 10, Councillor Baston, again to introduce agenda item number 10.
Thank you, Chairman. Introduce the item regarding the budget book for 2022-23. This is an annual report considered by the Audit Committee. The report sets out the Council's revenue budget for 2022-23 and is split between the 4 directorates of customer service and delivery, place and enterprise, governance and assurance, and strategic finance. The budget book compares the detail of the budget for 2021/22 against the budget for 2022-23 and provides a clear audit trail of all the movements in terms of the cost pressures and savings which were set out in the medium-term financial strategy and agreed as part of the 2022-23 budget process. The budget book also shows any veerments within 21-22. A veerment is where a budget is moved from one budget holder to another to better reflect where budget responsibility should be held. Veerments always net to 0. In addition, various minor presentational changes have been made to the 2023 budget shown in the other adjustments column in the budget book. These adjustments net to 0 as they are purely presentational. Thank you, Chairman.
Any questions from councillors on agenda item number 10? Councillor Rowe?
Well, it's not really a question, Chairman, but we used to, and I doubt we will now, be able to have budget book in paper form because it was very handy. We had a proper budget book, but are we going to be able to have that again, or is that something that's been and dusted? Thank you.
Councillor Baston?
No, that's not going to happen, but you could print it off on your own printer from the suggestor.
Well, it would probably cost me about, I don't know, £100.
Well,
to
you
print
do get
it
an
off.
allowance.
Not for that, thank you.
Councillor Pearce?
It might be useful if a separate PDF could be sent out of the budget book, and then you can just save it.
Mrs. Henstock, yeah.
Yeah, happy to do that. Yeah, no problem at all, Chair.
Any other questions from members on agenda item number 10? No, so the recommendation is that the audit committee notes the content of the budget book for 22-23. Do I have a proposer for it? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favour?
And that's unanimous, Chair.
It's unanimous. Thank you, Amber. Agenda item number 11, Councillor Baston.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, this is regarding the shared services methodology for 2021/22. This is also an annual report considered by the Audit Committee, which reviews the apportionment of costs, predominantly staffing costs, between South Hams District Council and West Devon Borough Council. Each year, the shared services splits are reviewed based on the latest caseload data available. For example, the total cost of housing benefits team is shared based on the number of new housing benefit claims and the change of circumstances processed in each council. Our external auditors, Grant Thornton, have identified the sharing of costs between South Hams District Council and West Devon Borough Council as a key risk area, and it is given high prominence throughout the year and particularly during closure of accounts. The most significant change for 21-22 relates to the customer contact centre, where the shared services split has moved from 66% South Hams, 34% West Devon to 71% South Hams, 29% West Devon, based on the number of phone calls in each authority. This has increased the salary recharge to South Hams by £24,700 in 21-22. Other areas of change relate to waste, disabled facilities grants, and 2 posts within the extended leadership team as laid out in the report. Most services remain unchanged or below the tolerance level set at 3%. The financial impact in 21-22 of the changes in shared services allocations is an additional staffing cost in South Hams of £31,700, which equates to 0.3% of the council's total salary budget. Thank you, Chairman.
Any questions on agenda item number 11 from members? Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. One can only assume that the increase in telephone calls to South Hams is probably due to the continuing issues that we've had with the waste. And I hope that that extra money that's costing us is added on to the money that we chase FCC for. Yeah, so that'd just be my comment on that. Otherwise, I welcome this report. I think it's very clear and comprehensive and fair, and yeah, I think it's good.
Councillor Baston, any comments on that? Are we going to add it to the waste contract?
I don't think we have any way of measuring what the calls were about.
We should know what they're about, shouldn't we?
Mrs. Buckle.
It will be a mixture of things. We do analyse our calls between the type of contact, which category of contact that is. I think it would be very difficult to split that salary recharge down between and identify exactly how much of that relates to additional waste calls. I think that would be quite difficult to do.
Not worth the candle then, basically, is what you're saying.
Members are aware of the fact that we are obviously in a contractual negotiation with our waste contractor already.
Any other questions, Councillor Brazil?
No, I was just going to say, just adding another string to your bow there, Lisa, in the negotiations. I mean, let them decide it's not part because of their issues. We don't have to.
Any other questions from any councillors? Nothing else on agenda item number 11. So the recommendation is that the Audit Committee notes the methodology of the shared services, appointment of costs between South Hams Council and West Devon Borough Council as attached in Appendix A. Do we have a proposer for that? Councillor Brazil, seconded. Councillor Spencer. All those in favour?
Yeah, unanimous, Chair.
And agenda item number 12, Councillor Baston.
And we need your microphone on.
Need your microphone on.
I'll start again then, Chairman. This report is regarding sundry debt. This report gives an update on the council's sundry debt position as at the 30th of January 2022. The arrears covered in this report are split into three categories as follows. The first one is sundry debts. Second is housing benefit overpayment recoveries from those still in receipt of housing benefit. And the third one is housing benefit overpayment recoveries from those no longer in receipt of housing benefit. Debt recovery was caused in the early months. Debt recovery was paused in the early months of 2020-21 following the initial COVID-19 lockdown, but all recovery procedures are now back up and running. The sundry debtor balance has reduced significantly in the last 6 months. The assets team have been actively pursuing unpaid debtor invoices and supporting our customers with options such as payment arrangements. Housing benefit overpayment debt has also reduced, and every effort has been made to recover the remaining debt with arrangements in place such as direct earning attachments and payment plans. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baston. I think given the current economic circumstances, I think the result we've had on this is actually very good, really. Are there any questions from any members of the committee regarding agenda item 12? So the recommendation for the committee is that the audit... Sorry? Councillor Pearce, sorry, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask Mrs. Buckle a question, if I may.
Yeah.
Mrs. Buckle, could you tell us on page 162 how much that very slim slither of a green line for trade waste has reduced in the last 6 or 7 weeks?
Yes, thank you, Leader. It has reduced significantly, and that's through the process really of us processing business rate grants, whereby members will be aware that the business rate loophole has been tightened, and therefore the eligibility of second homeowners who have business rated properties because they let out their property is available to let for more than 140 days. The eligibility for those business grants, they have to demonstrate that they have been trading, and therefore when we are processing those business grants, we have asked for evidence of a trade waste contract, as well as evidence of trading. So what lettings have they had? And we have seen our trade waste invoices, some debtors of which we have been chasing for quite some time, being recently paid, which is very good news, and quite a very good sort of side benefit, if you like, from us administering the business grants. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on agenda item 12? Nothing else. The recommendation before the committee is that the audit committee note the position in relation to sundry debts. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Brazil, seconded Councillor Spencer. All those in favour? It's unanimous. We have one final motion, which I believe Mr. White may be able to put on the screen, which is just a detail with regards to changing the date of a meeting. If Darryl White is there at the moment. Oh, yeah, he has. He's put it on the meeting.
Yes, due to officer availability.
Due to officer availability, it is proposed that the meeting of the Audit Committee scheduled for the 1st of September be delayed until the 8th of September. Effectively, we were unable to have attendance on a certain date, so we're moving it from 1 week to the next on the diary. Do any members have any questions on that? Do we have a proposer for it? Yep, proposed by Councillor Spencer.
Second, it's 2 o'clock start, is it?
2 p.m.
Yeah,
start, yeah, on the 8th of September. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
2 p.m. So 2 p.m. start. Second, proposed by Councillor Spencer, seconded by myself. All of those in favour?
That's carried unanimously.
Carried unanimous. So just approaching 2 o'clock. I'll close the meeting. Thank you all for attending.